Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the DC Capstone Report. It's great to be back with you guys today on the podcast. Lance and I are just overwhelmed with the outpouring of support we're getting from everyone. We just thank you for tuning in and listening to our podcast each and every week. This past week's podcast, we did have over 4,000 views, and we are just so thankful that you continue to listen to us and what we have to do. And I couldn't do this without Lance Shores. Lance does a great job of producing this every week. He's got some great videos and great content that'll be up on the website as well as we get into these home openers. So continue to tune in, and we just appreciate all that support we receive from each and every one of you. Well, today on the podcast, in the first segment, we're going to take a look and review the Alabama versus Missouri game that was held this past Saturday night. In the second segment, we're going to talk about our standout players of the game from last week's game against Missouri. And in our third and final segment, we're going to preview the upcoming game against the Texas A&M Aggies this coming Saturday.
You're listening to the DC Capstone Report. The DC Capstone Report is featured each Tuesday morning on the Martin Houston Show at Tide 100.9. You can listen live at Tide100.9.com.
Well, it's great to be back for another podcast on Alabama football. Last week, at Saturday night, 6 p.m., we played the Missouri Tigers. What a great opening game win. It's great to just be back playing football, watching football, just to try to get back some normalcy. I know this season has been really different. And I think all the players were ready to get on the field and play. Coach Saban even said it was great to get back to normalcy of playing the ball game. And I think as we look at this game against Missouri, when we came out, I believe we played one of the best first halves that we've ever played in an opening game. So really did a great job. On offense, it looked to me like that we were doing what we wanted to do on offense, running the ball in the first half, making some good play-action passes, making some good throws. Our Mac Jones was on. His throws were good. Running the ball was good. The offensive line played well. If you break it down in the first half, we really did a good job of running the ball with Najee Harris. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. He had some good seams to run through. Offensive line got a good push. Now, when I say that, I really mean something when you're playing against the Missouri Tigers. They often like to try to stop the run, to force you to throw the ball. And they were, most of the time in their defensive sets, they were in an 8-man front. And if anyone else out there has ever played football, ever watched a lot of football, it's very hard to run against an 8-man front. But I think our offensive line really did a good job. It was also good to see some of our tight ends get in. We got to see Miller Forstall, Carl Tucker, the new transfer from North Carolina, and also Cameron Latou get in there to block on some short yardage situations. So it looks like that 3 tight end set is going to be really good as blocking along with our offensive line. But I was so pleased in the first half the way our offensive line played to help that running game. And I think it was really good against that 8-man front that Missouri threw at us most of the night. Passing game was superb as well. The first thing you need in the passing game is a good pocket, and it looked like the offensive line gave Mac Jones plenty of time to throw the ball, and he used the pocket well by stepping up in the pocket to avoid pressure. I believe Najee Harris did a good job of picking up some of the blitzes that took place as well. So in that passing game, I think our offensive line played a really good game. And our passing game with some of the good wide receivers that we have, Devonta Smith, Jaylen Waddle, and John Mechie, they've all made some great plays in this game. But Mac Jones, I have to compliment him. He was spot on several throws. A couple of throws that Devonta Smith did not complete. He either dropped or was a great play by the defensive back, safety getting over late, were right on point. And throws that he made to Jaylen Waddle were right on point, and then to John Mechie as well. And he even hit a really good pass play to the tight end at one point. So I think overall the passing game looked really good. One of the things that impressed me most about the first half on Alabama was the defense, how they came out and played. To me, it looked like they came out on a mission in that first half to really put a statement factor about the Bama factor being back. And we really held, the entire game held Missouri really good on the rushing front. I think they averaged 2 yards a carry rushing the ball. They ran it for 34 times. They had like 69 yards rushing as a team. And that was really good to see our front seven play so well in the rush. It was really good to see our linebackers, the way we've lined up with Dylan Moses and Christian Harris, the ability for Christian Harris to run free and get after the quarterback. He did a great job of bringing some pressure up the middle when all the line were occupied with our defensive linemen. And Dylan Moses just played like he was a man possessed in those first couple of series. You could tell that he was ready to get back on the field and play in this game. He made his presence known. And most of all, I think the communication was really good. I think the communication was so good that you could see them passing off in that first half signals to each other and playing really well, relaying those signals. So I think the communication from the coaches and the players and from the players to the players was a really good improvement in this game. Well, I think there was some negatives. We saw a drop-off in the second half. I think we're going to have to learn to maintain that intensity even to the second half. Now, the question I have is how much does the COVID-related restrictions on fan attendance, how much does that play in the game? I know Coach Saban doesn't like to talk about it. He thinks you should be motivated from within, but there are a lot of external factors in the game that can motivate players to stay in the game, keep their heads in the game. And in the second half, I think we were up. Our intensity kind of waned a little bit. And I believe if we had a full stadium of Alabama fans, I believe that we would see that intensity ramp up just a little bit. So I'm not sure how much it affected, but I think it had some effect. Also, in the second half, the lack of intensity also showed when we started to substitute some on defense. We had some breakdowns in communication with younger players, had some breakdowns on plays that were costly and let Missouri score. But I think the one thing that I think showed the rust was the penalties. I believe we had two many penalties in the game. We had some false starts by almost every one of the offensive linemen. We had some delay of game calls. We had some penalties that cost us in the game. So we can't make those penalties and still expect to advance against greater opponents down the road. So we've got to clean up that. But I think overall this game against Missouri was a really good game to get started with. It starts with a really good opponent in the SEC that had a great defense. And I know that some of you might think I'm playing with this, but I'm not sure that we're going to see a front seven stronger in the SEC for a starting game than we did in Missouri. I think it's going to really help us down the road when we play because we started off with such a good and strong defense. I think our secondary played really well. I think in the Missouri game, the second half we had some breakdowns, but I believe it's because of some young players that were in. Really across the board, Josh Jobe, I think he did good. Daniel Wright did good. Malachi Moore got his start as a freshman at Star. He did really well. And of course, Patrick Surtain played well. Jordan Battle, I thought, played well. So our starting players in the secondary, which I was concerned about before the game, really showed up and played well, especially in the first half. So overall, the review of the Missouri game, great victory. We got out of there off the road against a quality SEC opponent. We came home with a victory. So it's a good game anytime you get to come home on your first game with a victory. Well, here in our second segment, we're going to look at our standout players of the game for the Alabama-Missouri game. First, we're going to look at on the offensive side of the ball. I think it all starts with the quarterback on the offensive side of the ball. So one of my outstanding offensive players of the game has to be Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is more than a serviceable quarterback. I think he's a championship caliber quarterback. He can make all the right throws. He can make the right reads. I love the way he steps up in the pocket. If you were watching this game on television, the announcer, commentator, the color analyst, Todd Blackledge, had a great package toward the end of the game about how Mac Jones can see the field and step up. One of the qualities I think that most quarterbacks have to have, but you don't talk about as much. He was able to do that. He was able to stand in the pocket. On that touchdown he threw to Jaylen Waddle in the right corner was so good that he stayed in the pocket, took a nice big hit by the Missouri linebacker who was coming on the blitz, but stood in there and delivered a on-spot throw for a touchdown to Jaylen Waddle. So that was just his play in calling the plays and getting them in the right play, making the right decisions to hand the ball off or to pass the ball, those run-pass options, I think showed a lot of good maturity that Mac Jones has increased, and I think he's doing a really good job. And so I look for great things to come from Mac Jones. My second outstanding offensive player of the game, or the standout player, has got to be Najee Harris. I think he ran the ball well in the first half. He did a good job. He was very tough. He was a tough runner. He scored on 3 separate rushing plays. So I think he did a really good job. He's not the flashy running back. He's not the star quality running back some people like to see. But for me, he's a very good running back that does a great job for Alabama. I look for great things to come down the road for Najee Harris. And my third and my final standout offensive player of the game has to be Jaylen Waddle. He led the team in receptions for yardage or touchdowns, and just was, when he gets the ball, it is just great to see him run and get himself open. One thing I think that most of the listeners out there may not realize is this year what's up to his game. I think he's quicker because of our strength and conditioning coaches. He's a little faster, which is hard to believe, but he's quicker off the ball. Another thing that's helped him this year, is going to help him in more games, is now he knows how to play every position in the wide receiver. Last year he was kind of pigeonholed as a slot receiver when you got other players on the team that were good, and he was kind of pigeonholed in that slot receiver position. But now, but he's so good, I would say he's probably the best player on the field when he's playing, and a lot of teams will want to double team him. It's hard to double team when you're in multiple sets and with multiple positions. So he can play any of the wide receivers, the X, the Y, or the slot. And when he can do that, it's hard to double team on the field. So this is going to give him more opportunities for down the field, as you saw in this game, to get open down the field. Still had a great catch across the middle. He's tough. He's quick. And it's easy to see why he's my standout offensive player of the game. Well, on defense, you look over on defense, and right off the page jumps out at you has to be Dylan Moses. Dylan Moses coming off of an injury. Is he back? Yeah, I'd say he's back. He played with reckless abandon that first half. I was so great to see him go out there. And you see what he means to this Alabama defense. Having that quarterback on the defense on the field for the majority of the time against Missouri showed just how much he means to the team to keep it together. So Dylan Moses is one of my defensive standout players of the game, and it's so great to have him back. LaBryan is another standout defensive player of the game. He's changed numbers this year, went from 89 to 18. But if you look at him, he has really gotten in his better shape. He uses off time recovering from injury to get healthy. And he was in on a lot of plays in this game. Even though when he didn't make the tackle, he was pressing and pushing the pocket on the quarterback from Missouri, and was able to play good when he ran those option plays as well. So LaBryan is another standout player of the game. My third standout defensive player of the game has to be the freshman Will Anderson Jr. If you watch this game, you saw him from the very beginning be a disruptive factor on defense. He can get in there and occupy the offensive lineman to a point that it opens up holes for none other than Christian Harris to go in and sack the quarterback. When you got defensive linemen that occupy the offensive lineman so much that it opens up holes for your linebackers to get in, you've got a great setup. And Will Anderson Jr. not only occupied, but he beat the offensive linemen so much that they were skittish and watching him on every play. It still didn't help. He still got to the quarterback for pressure and sacks, and he got to the running back on the option play so much that it took them out as an option in the running game, which is what was a really integral part of holding them to only 69 yards rushing. So, I've heard all the hype in the offseason about him, and then when you see him in person, you see why he's so well thought of and so well talked about. So another standout player of the game is Will Anderson on defense. If you want to look at the special teams, which I like to talk about who the best player on special teams was for us, I want to give it the standout player on special teams to be Will Reichard. Coming back from a good debilitating injury that he had last year with his hip flexor, to see him come back and kick with such authority and kick with such accuracy. I thought he did a good job on extra points and on the field goal that he had the opportunity to make. So it's great to have a kicker that we can rely on. I think it's got great things to come with Will Reichard. One of the things that Coach Saban has done is we have another kicker that's kicking off, and Reichard's not having to do those duties. We have another punter that's punting. He's not having to do those duties. So this year he gets to concentrate on kicking extra points and field goals, which I think is going to be really good for him coming off an injury. So my standout players of the game on offense are Mac Jones, Najee Harris, and Jaylen Waddle. On defense, Dylan Moses, LaBryan Ray, and Will Anderson Jr. And on special teams, Will Reichard. Well, we're into our third and final segment on the podcast today, and that is a preview of the Texas A&M Aggies. Well, this coming first Saturday in October, this coming Saturday, October the 3rd, we get a home opener against the Texas A&M Aggies. It's going to be a great day here in Tuscaloosa. And just to see that new Bryant-Denny Stadium, it's all finished and completed and ready for our first home game of the year. And I know it can't come any too soon for the people in Tuscaloosa. We've been waiting for this for some time, try to get back to some normalcy. Now, it won't be normal because inside the stadium will be limited to the number of fans that can be in there. But I have a prediction. Although there's no tailgating allowed on the university campus, I think there's going to be more people in Tuscaloosa outside the stadium than they are allowed inside the stadium, just because I know the fans are hungry for some Alabama action. So you're going to see places popping up all over the city for tailgates and watching the game and that sort of thing. But it's going to be a great atmosphere. It's fun to see a great caliber team coming in for your second game as your home opener in the Texas A&M Aggies, and it's going to be a challenge. I think they're going to bring a more high explosive offense back to the field than Missouri challenges with. And you got 16 starters returning on both sides of the ball. It's going to be a seasoned veteran team. You got a veteran quarterback in Kelly Mond who's going to try to take advantage. So what do I think is going to happen in this game? Well, I think they're going to try to rely on Kelly Mond's experience. He's already played Alabama a couple of times. He knows kind of the schemes that they run on defense. I think they're going to try to run. They're going to try to run some things that Alabama that they haven't seen and try to confuse our young secondary. So I look for him to throw the ball a lot and put in some passing situations where run-pass options for him so he can use his legs. He's very athletic, very tall, and he can make some good throws. I think when they do that, they're going to try to also use their running backs as decoys to try to get out to get some of our ends off the ball so that they can kind of slow down the pass rush that Alabama has developed in this first game. But, look for them to rely heavy on Kelly Mond on offense. When we have the ball, look for Texas A&M to try to ramp up the pressure. I believe they're going to really be a test for our offensive line on pass rush. I think they've seen that we're going to be able to rush, we're going to be able to pass the ball without getting the ball to our playmakers. And they see the only way they think they can limit Mac Jones is to get him out of the pocket, get him moving, and try to put the pressure on him. So I think there's going to be an added significance on trying to get pressure, especially from their defensive ends, to try to get Mac Jones to get out and move from side to side instead of staying in the pocket. Because when Mac Jones stays in the pocket and he has protection, he can pick this defense apart, I believe, of Texas A&M. So what they think they're going to do is try to pressure him to get him out of the pocket. Well, how will we counteract what they're going to do? I think although they come in with a good defensive-minded coach and a good offensive scheme to put in place, I believe Alabama is going to be able to handle that, what they throw at them. On the offensive side of the ball, I think we have an offensive line that's going to be able to stand up against the defensive pressure. I believe the offensive line that we've got is going to be able to help in every area each other to communicate where the blitzers are coming from, where the pressures are coming from, and be able to give a good pocket for Mac Jones to stand. If he can stand in the pocket and make some throws, I think against their secondary we have a great opportunity to pick them apart and really get some big plays. I think Jaylen Waddle has a big game in this game. I think Devontae Smith has a good game in this game, and so does John Mitchie. I believe we're going to have a really good passing game against Texas A&M if we can maintain the pressure. On defense, I believe what we have to do is be committed to stop the run and not let Kelly Mond get outside of the pocket to make that pocket so he has to stay in. Don't let him beat us with his legs. Don't let him extend plays. We did a great job in the Missouri game of getting off the field on third down. I believe it's critical in this Texas A&M game to not let Kelly Mond extend downs on third down. If we can get off the field on third down, I think you're going to see Alabama do really well in this game. I believe our pressure is going to be able to get to him. I believe our up front pressure from not only from the outside and Will Anderson, but also our middle line pressure is going to be able to get to him, and I believe it's going to make a tough day for Kelly Mond. I believe our defensive backs are primed to have a good game in this game, because with that pressure involved, it's going to come some mistakes. I believe we might get a couple of picks in this game if Texas A&M tries to throw the ball. I believe if we do what we did against Missouri and play the run as well as we did, I think we'll be good in this game as well. So overall, I think it's going to be a great opening game for us. It presents some challenges to us. I think Kelly Mond is going to challenge us, but I believe in the end, Alabama is going to be up for the challenge. And I guess like you, like me, like everyone else, we're excited for football to return to Tuscaloosa. So I think it's just a great credit to our coaches and our coaching staff and the people that don't get credit, like our trainers and our nutritionists and our strength and conditioning and sports science department, for keeping this team healthy as it's been going into this home opener against Texas A&M. So when it's all said and done, I think Alabama comes out of this with a great victory, even score more points than we did last week. I think Alabama wins this game 42-17. Well, that's all for the podcast this week. We thank you for tuning in. Hope you've enjoyed it. Share this with all your friends and continue to tune in for some great updates on Alabama football. This is DC with the DC Capstone Report, wishing everyone a roll tide.